Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Live in Italy Magazine's Chat with an Expat YouTube channel. If you are looking to read the interview, you can find it on our website. I'm really excited today to welcome Danny McCubbin, who is originally from Australia, lived for a considerable amount of time in the UK, and currently resides in Mussomeli, Sicily. Now, if you haven't heard about Danny, maybe you've heard about Mussomeli. But today is special. At least it's special for me, and I hope for you too, because we're not going to talk about the 1 Euro home project or buying a home in Italy. We're going to talk about community and the importance of la cucina, food, la tavola, and Danny's project and book called The Good Kitchen. So stick around, because at the end, we're going to talk about how you can follow Danny if you're not doing so already. Learn when his book is going to come out, if it's not out by the time we finish, and publish this interview, and also about how you can support his project. My name is Lisa Morales, and I am the editor of Live in Italy Magazine, a travel and lifestyle publication dedicated to all things Italy. Hi, Danny. Buonasera for you.
Buonasera. Thank you so much for having me on your show and interviewing, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yes, me too. I'm very excited to see you in person and hear everything about what you're doing. It's just so impressive. And I'm hoping, because you've been on bigger national networks, but I'm hoping through our audience that we can maybe really give more exposure to what you do. I think our Italian readers will be delighted as well, not just our foreign readers, and get to know you more. So let's go back in history. Where are you from?
So originally, Lisa, I'm from Australia, and I lived and worked in London for 23 years.
That's great. And what were you doing in London?
So like many Aussies, I backpacked. Backpacked first in 94. So I took 2 years off and traveled around Europe, fell in love with travel like many Aussies. My grandparents are from the UK. So my grandmother's from Essex in London, UK, and my grandfather's from Scotland. And so I backpacked and then went home. And then in 98, I decided to move to London to take up my ancestry visa. Originally, Lisa, I was just going to stay and work and travel. And then I fell in love with London and ended up working for the chef and food campaigner Jamie Oliver in 2003.
That's amazing. And I believe you were helping with the marketing, correct?
Yeah, so I started in 2003. Jamie had just finished the Naked Chef series and also had finished a beautiful program called Jamie's Kitchen, where he trained 15 young people from challenging backgrounds to become top-class chefs. And so I started when there was no P&D or HR department. It was kind of people, you sort of had to know somebody in the business. And I started in PR and marketing, and I then moved on to project manage Jamie's first website, and then I became his PA for 4 years. And in that time, Lisa, I learned everything about the business, but always my interest was his food campaigns. So how he could influence governments about feeding children in the UK. And so for 17 years, I worked for Jamie in various roles, web editor, social media, head of social media. But at the heart of it, I always worked, my passion was always his campaign-led food campaigns.
Yeah, that's great. And if you're wondering why I asked, it's just because that is my background. And I have interviewed lots of people, and some of them are successful YouTubers. And I always know that behind every passion project is a little bit of marketing savvy. So, and a lot of people, you can DIY. So if you have something, social media is your best way. We highly encourage it. But okay, so let's go back to Australia and food. One thing that I was very interested in is that you did a TedX talk, and you talked about your grandmother. And what caught my attention is your grandma said something about the tomato. Tell us.
Yeah, so my grandparents were farmers back in Australia, and I grew up on a farm. And I always knew what a real tomato tastes like. So I think that's innate, many Australians, we have such great produce there. I think there's, so many similarities with Italy. But I had the joy of having a childhood of being in the country, and my earliest memory is falling asleep under a pumpkin patch and waking to the
That's
sound
a
of my grandma
dream.
calling. Yeah, my grandma calling my name. So I had a beautiful food experience from a very young age, and we grew all our own produce, and all my family cooked, and it was just it wasn't something special that you did. It was just food was a part of our life.
That's great. And of course, I mean, I, I I just presumed maybe that you mentioned tomato because you had some ancestral connection to Italy. Is that the case?
No, it's my friends actually say I'm looking more Italian the longer I live
Yeah,
here.
definitely.
Yeah, but no. So my grandmother is from England, grandfather from Scotland. I do wish that I had these roots in Italy, but sadly not, Lisa.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I mean, not all the best tomatoes are from Italy, are they?
True,
So
true.
that was like a presumption on my part.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in in the UK, and I'm kind of curious about when was your first trip to Italy?
Sure. So Jamie opened a restaurant called 15, and it was a social enterprise. So we trained hard to reach young people to become top class chefs. And most of the chefs at 15 were Italian. And so it really sparked my interest in Italian culture and Italian food. And I first started to really fall in love with Italy when we took a group of chefs and apprentices to a beautiful project called San Patrignano in near Bologna and Rimini for a food festival. And I fell in love with this community. So I was mentoring a lot of the graduates from 15. I did a life coaching course to mentor young people who had challenges around drugs and alcohol and mental health challenges. And here is, I got transported then to this incredible community in the north of Italy where they train the 52 different skills to train young people who are suffering from the effects of addiction. And so that first started my love affair with Italy, and so many similarities to Australia in terms of food and the weather. And so for a long time, I used to travel to Italy. I set up an association in the UK to help people to go to San Patrignano. And so I made many friends here and really looked at the possibility when my London chapter closed of possibly moving to Italy one day.
Ah, so what year did that happen?
I started to think about it, Lisa, in 2016 when it was decided that the UK would leave the European Union. So Brexit happened.
Mhm.
Um, and I'd always seen myself as kind of European more so than British. My grandmother, great grandmother was from Germany. And I had all these, I think as an Aussie, I still had this fascination about Europe and food and culture. And here's like this, this landmass where there's all these different cultures living together. And so I started to think about what to do. I knew that my next step involved not working full time. In London, London's very expensive. And so in 2019, I looked at the possibility of moving to Italy. I know that we're not focusing on the €1 houses, but it was a €1 house
Oh,
that
you can
actually
talk
bought.
about it. That's all right. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
didn't want it to be the center of my
Yeah,
discussion.
sure. I appreciate that because I mean many people look at Mussomeli and Sicily only for these houses that are so inexpensive, but there's so much more to life here, and we'll get onto that when we just chat. But
Mhm.
as 2019 approached, I was working with Jamie. I was his culture manager, so I was responsible for the food ethos of the business and food education and beautiful job. But I knew that if I didn't start planning to go to live in Italy, then by the time 2020 happened, I wouldn't be able to get my Italian residency. So
Right,
my plan was
right.
to buy a €1 house and set it up as a social project to give back to the town. And so in 20, lots of things happened in between. Obviously, it was the pandemic and it took a long time to get here. But at the end of 2020, I took a leap of faith and left London and arrived in Mussomeli in the heart of Sicily to my €1 house.
That's right. Now, I just want to clarify in all that. Now, your path to residency was
Yeah.
pre-Brexit.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
and the reason why I'm saying this is because if anybody's watching us, I will tell you, and the reason why I didn't want to focus on €1 is like we get questions every single day. And usually it is if I buy a property, never mind a €1 home, if that's a path to residency. No, it's not. Now, I'm not an expert, consult an expert on that fact, but that's just why I wanted you to clarify
Yeah.
that. So thank you for saying
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I get many inquiries as well. And you know, the EU is starting to open up now in terms of digital nomad visas,
right.
and also if you can prove to be self-sustaining online, there's certain ways that you can stay for longer. So, but there is this assumption that if you own a house, then you can stay past the 3 months, which isn't the case. And you can get there. So I don't want to discourage anyone as well
Oh
from
no. No,
these
it's totally
opportunities.
possible. But that
Absolutely.
you are a resident because of
Yes.
that. So
Yep.
that's great. And yes, it is possible and things are opening up. It's funny that
Yep.
you talk about the digital nomad visa. We just published about this. And what I've been telling people is check with esteri.it and your consulate, especially if you're Americans. Because the thing is, to me, until they post it there, it's not exactly official. But
Yep.
good news is, I really think, as you just stated, that we're on our way. So the fact that it's
Yep.
buzzing, hopefully that'll happen soon. So yeah,
Yep.
so let's talk about Mussomeli. Why Mussomeli?
Yeah.
Besides a
So,
one-year home, okay?
so originally, Lisa, it's a little known fact. Actually, I write about it in the book because,
Excellent.
you know, it's I always envisaged that I would be up further north in Italy, and I have a lot of friends around Tuscany and Florence and Fiesole and around those regions. But after I left working for Jamie, I was actually going to be on a TV series in the UK where they followed 6 people from the UK who buy a €1 house in this town called Mussomeli in the heart of Sicily. And it was a perfect next step for me because my plan was to crowdfund to renovate the house to set up a community kitchen in the house. And so I hadn't actually considered Sicily, but then I came to Mussomeli, and as an Aussie, the countryside is stunning. Post London, post pandemic, I was looking for a much quieter life. I set up 2 community kitchens in London during the pandemic, and it didn't take its toll on me, but it was quite exhausting to be on the front line cooking meals for people that kind of everyone had forgotten. So I fell in love with Mussomeli. It's remote, it's quiet, people are kind and people are friendly here. The TV program got cancelled during the pandemic, which is totally fine because I couldn't
Mhm.
imagine making a TV program when the pandemic was happening. But I owned the house, so it was my key to the stepping stone to get here and for my residency. So in 2020, I moved to Mussomeli. I didn't know anyone here, and my Italian was quite basic, and I certainly didn't speak the Sicilian dialect, but
Yes.
it was I saw the first 6 months almost like a retreat. I rented a home for €250 a month. That was just beautiful. And then I just said about kind of, okay, I know I have all these skills around food and community, and I'd set up the community kitchens in London. What is it that I can do for this town? And so that's how I ended up in Mussomeli, and I really haven't looked back.
That's excellent. And I think we really need to get into that. And I think that is one of the most um, important things about you coming into Mussomeli is that the recognition of the fact that, and if you decide to buy a home there or in one of these other areas that they're trying to bring new life to it, that there is still a community there.
Yeah.
So without any kind of further delay, let's talk about the good kitchen.
For sure. I'm so proud of the Good Kitchen. So we turned 3 in July, and it's a very simple premise. So I crowdfunded in our first year, and I raised money to make us sustainable for the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And we opened a space in the town square. So we didn't open in my €1 house because many of these €1 houses, it suffered a lot of damage during the pandemic. And so it was too expensive to renovate there. So we rent a space in the middle of the town square. The kitchen's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And when I first opened, people, because it's so new, the idea of this kind of communal space, people thought that it was, I was a chef and that it was a business, it was a restaurant. And so it took quite some time to educate people that this is a space where you can come for social inclusion, you can come for a cooking class, bring your kids for a cooking class. We rescue food 4 times a week from the supermarkets here.
Excellent.
And then we put that food to good use. So we do a fresh food delivery to families on a Thursday. Friday's kind of a reset day. Saturdays we open the kitchen doors and do kids cooking classes. Tomorrow we're doing pickling classes in the kitchen. And then Sunday, as you know, Lisa, is the day for everyone to come together for lunch. So we open the doors and do a long table, and we just invite anyone. So you don't have to. I was very conscious when I opened the kitchen that it wasn't a place of shame or poverty
Yeah,
or a soup kitchen. It's a place of joy. And it took
right.
quite some time to for the community of Mussomeli to learn that it was okay to step indoors to the kitchen. It doesn't mean that because the Sicilians are very proud. So, it took a while for people to realize that this is a beautiful space where you can come for friendship, for joy, to learn something, and then share a meal together as well. So it's quite a simple premise, and I don't want it to ever change. We have around 20 families we look after. We've started looking after families in a smaller town called Acquaviva Platini. And we do about 50 meals on a Sunday. But for me, it's beautiful because there are layers to the kitchen. So we have an incredible nonna by the name of Kalodjera, who was out of work for a long time. Her children have grown up. She was looking for something to do. She started cooking on a Sunday for us, and now she's bringing her friends to cook with us. We have young volunteers, so young teenagers from the community. There's 50% youth unemployment in Sicily, so there's
Yeah.
not a lot of opportunities for young people here. So we've got a brigade of young people that come and volunteer as well. And then we also look after all the Ukrainian families. So the families that have fled the war come and connect and come to cooking classes, and we provide meals for them. So, in many ways, Lisa, I'm just reminding Italians to do what they do best, which is to come together through food.
Right. Yeah. And then something is very natural. And I like how you were talking about, to eliminate the shame, because I think that's just something that goes with the word charity, which we're going to talk about. Because one thing you talk about is it's more than charity. And this is what I love about what you're doing, is that you're empowering people and people in the town. And before I forget, if you could include what, as you talk about this, is that when we think about the €1, the project and any of these things, their endeavors, we think of that because these towns only have the elderly left. Well, a lot of young people do leave these towns, as we know. Italians, it's different than us as foreigners, not difficult, because for Italians, they have to go to the big cities or they have to go abroad. So tell us first about the town that is much more than other people, and then the idea of why charity needs to go beyond just donating money or food.
Great questions, Lisa. Yeah, I think the word charity doesn't really sum up what the kitchen's about. I think for me here in the town, people are generally happy with their lives. So,
Mhm.
a lot of the families here, the kids, it reminds me of Australia. Like the kids, it's very safe. They ride their bikes. They stay out at nighttime when the sun goes down. It's okay. And they don't know another life of a shopping mall and the latest Nike shoes or the latest watch or the latest whatever. Or, you know, they are happy with the seasons, the change of seasons, the food. They're very family orientated. So it's not like I'm coming in and saying, oh, I want to change something in this town because,
Right.
you know, I don't think the town needs to change. It's beautiful and perfect as it is. It's like centuries of a culture of family and food and seasons of food, as I said. What I'm doing really is just, you know, like some of the young teenagers that come, like, because we're nearly three now, some of the lads were like 12 when they came to us, they're now turning 15. They're learning English, they're speaking to people from other countries, they're starting to think about kind of, you know, not travel, but careers. And it's not like I'm coming in and saying, oh, you should all work and you should all you should all find
Yeah.
jobs, because, you
Yeah.
know, it's not, I was always conscious that I would provide this beautiful space, the food, the resource, my time, my volunteer in the kitchen, and then the kitchen would grow organically. So the people of the town have really adopted the kitchen. So it's not, you know, we have so many locals that love bringing food from their campagnas to contribute to the kitchen. The town square's just been renovated, and on the weekend now, when the doors are open, we just get people coming along, elderly people coming along, having a cup of coffee and espresso, sitting down and watching the kids cook. And so, you know, I always think that, you know, at one stage in that town square, there would have been a massive wood-fired oven, and families would have been coming together sharing food. Somebody would have porchetta and somebody would have some verdura and grilling and bread and talk and swap. I've just sort of given a modern day version of what the town would have had. And I'm just so happy that it's grown now, that our volunteers are running the kitchen. I don't cook very often now on a Sunday. I used to cook all day. Now the volunteers all cook, and it's
Oh,
about
that's great.
empowering, yeah,
Yeah.
empowering them and giving them responsibility. And it really, the people of the town completely understand the kitchen now. They completely understand. I hear people talking, sometimes I hear conversations and, you know, talking about like the kitchen and how it, you know, not only do we rescue food, so I'm doing some stats at the moment. We've got 2 full-time volunteers that are with us. And in 3 months, we rescued 1.5 tons of produce from the supermarkets. So there's all these incredible things that the kitchen does that I kind of forget about because I'm just a doer and I just get it done. But there's all these beautiful layers as well. And you know, I think the mayor has said to me that it's kind of opened up. There's many associations in Mussomeli for elderly people, for um, people coming together, for cultural activities, for tourist activities, for festivals.
Hmm.
And the mayor has said to me that the example of the kitchen is that the associations are starting to look to work together more now, which is another brilliant thing, which I didn't
Excellent.
even set out to do, but is happening.
Right. And it keeps going through in my head about you saying that doing things they always did, because what I keep thinking about is I'm in the United States. So obviously food waste is just a common thing. And you can't just take food and give it away. There's just so much bureaucracy. And it's
Mhm.
funny because I love food too. I'm a foodie. And then just obviously learning more and more and more every day about Italy is that the whole concept, you know, post World War, if you look into like the history of pasta, I mean, there's so much part of the Italian diet that was just based on necessity and what you had. So the concept of food going, you know, like just not being used and you can use it. Like, I mean, to me, this is almost like a rebirth, don't you think, of some of these concepts that maybe got lost in modernity?
Sure. I mean, Italians are, you know, great at using all parts of the veg. So,
Hmm.
you know, in the book, I've got some recipes for like a celery leaf pesto and a wilted green pasta sauce using all the brassicas and wilting them down. So, you know, Italians are great at not wasting food. I think with the onset of supermarkets, it's a different story.
Right, right.
You know, and the supermarkets are good here. So like sometimes I go to the supermarket and there's no food no surplus food. So it's like,
Hmm.
you know, it's a challenge in a way because then we have to find other food for our families. But I'm also like, fantastic. You're doing your job. But it's
Right.
also about just, I think Italians are they don't expect a melanzane or an aubergine or a zucchini to be perfect. If there's a little bit of dirt on it, or like you go to the supermarkets and all the leaves are on the produce. It's like that's
Mm-hmm.
the way it should be.
Yeah.
Um, so, so it's just really, educating and working with the supermarkets here. Their habitual change would have been, okay, this is the recycling for the produce, but now we save this produce for the good kitchen. And so it took a little while to work with the supermarkets, but the joy of working in a small town is that everyone knows everyone knows me, and everyone knows the kitchen. So everyone in the supermarket that I'm working with. And I also did this other, I was very conscious to enroll everyone in the supermarket in the goods kitchen as well. So they would give me a lot of produce, and then the next week I'd bring a photo of what we cooked, like a caponata, or we put this in a soup,
Excellent.
and so they get to see. It's like, and then that's a visual reference. Like, okay, I'm not going to throw that aubergine out on Melantonia. I'm going to save it for Danny. So it's been incredible, and 1.5 tons of food in 3 months is just
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Mind blowing. So before we get into your book, because I'm anxious to know, uh, is has anyone in the town ever asked you why?
I'm here.
Yeah, like a native Sicilian, a native Mussomelian.
I think at first, there was a lot of misconception at first that I was a chef opening a commercial space,
Right.
and it's very difficult in all the press that I did when I arrived, because there was quite a lot of press about when we did the crowdfunder, because it was still during the pandemic and it was kind of like
Mhm.
this feel-good story. But it's quite difficult to explain to an Italian that I'm not a chef. I'm a good home cook. And there's nothing in Italian that because everyone cooks at home in
Yeah,
Italy. So
exactly.
it took me a long time to say I'm a home cook. Like I come from a family of really good cooks. So, it's like famosa cuoco a Londra. And so, it was like this misconception. And so I had to really work hard to say to everyone, I volunteer, it's not a business. It's a communal space. And when I tell people that when I arrived and tell people that I'm from Australia and that I kind of got a bit burnt out in London and I was looking for a quiet place, as soon as I say something peaceful and tranquil, they get it about Mussomeli.
That's
Um,
good.
yeah, no, people just accept me for what I do rather than, who I am and my kind of why I'm here. And I always think,
Oh, good.
that proof is in the pudding, and action speaks louder than words. And
Of
so,
course.
yeah, maybe because in the beginning there's a language barrier that people, I don't know, but
The only
they
reason
they
why I asked is because some of the other people who I've interviewed that moved to small towns, people are a little curious why they picked their town. What are they doing there? Because, I guess it seems glamorous to anyone, that you come from maybe like a big city like London
yeah,
or, in the case of Americans, why would you pick a small town in Italy? Because they're not thinking of all the things that they're used to every day for them
yeah,
naturally is something that's attractive
yeah.
to people
I,
from outside.
I think when I take them on the journey of my childhood and growing up on a farm and my history with the land, and also I think, people looked at me like this young chef. And so, I'm 60 this year. So I always say that, like,
Oh,
this is that life is these phases. So I'm on the next phase, which is post career, post work, post
right.
working full time. And yeah, I mean, people are very respectful because of what I do. People have asked, funnily enough, if I have a religious faith, and that whether the kitchen is because of a religious faith. I mean, I am spiritual in a way, but it's the closest that people have come to inquiring about me as a person, which I thought was very interesting. And, I very quickly say, look, you don't need to have a religious faith to be setting up a project like I've set up. It was an interesting question when somebody asked me that question.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's talk about the book because that got me thinking, but I don't want to go off off the beaten
On a
interview
tangent.
track. Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the book. I'm
Yeah.
very excited to know if you're following Danny on Instagram, which you should be by now, or by the end of this interview or somewhere in between, please follow him. Let's talk about the book. What's it called?
Thank you. So the book is called The Good Kitchen, Love and Connection Through Food. So
Mm.
above we have a in Italian and English, The Good Kitchen, Love and Connection Through Food. And it was quite an interesting journey for me, Lisa, being on the other side of publishing, obviously, because I worked for Jamie for 17 years and
Mhm.
knew about that kind of relationship that he has with his publisher. And when I was his PA, kind of working on how a book is formulated and the launch dates and everything like that. And so it was interesting to being on the other side then of getting a book published. And I learned a lot in a short amount of time. I think the challenge with this book was so I ended up going with an independent publisher in Melbourne Books, who've been absolutely incredible. And so some of the bigger publishers were kind of worried about where the book would sit in the bookshop. Is it a memoir? Is it a story? Or is it a cookbook? And so I
Mm.
didn't want to go down any of those three paths. I wanted to write the book, which I've written, which is my history in food, leaving London, how I found Mussomeli, and then the first year of the Good Kitchen. And so I talk from the heart of the challenges I faced. And throughout the book, it's really about encouraging others if they want to start a project that has social value. There's recipes in the book too, as well. So cook recipes that we cook in the Good Kitchen. There's a section on how to set up a community kitchen as well. And really, it's a feel-good story. It's a memoir to Mussomeli, a memoir to all of the incredible volunteers in the kitchen. And all of my royalties are going back to the Good Kitchen. So
Love it.
it's become a charity book. It's beautiful. I'm very proud of what we've created. An amazing photographer by the name of Ros, who is her title is Her Dark Materials on Instagram.
Okay. We'll look her
Yeah,
up.
yeah, incredible. So Ros came here 5 times to take photographs, beautiful
Excellent.
photograph. And it's really a collaborative effort. So I've got some recipes from some of my heroes. So Gennaro Cantaldo and others as well have contributed. And the recipes really are designed that if you need to upscale, if you're cooking for a big group of people, so not even if you're setting up a community kitchen, but say you've got, I don't know, 20 people for a party and you want to make food for 20 or 40, then you can upscale these recipes. So very proud. We're just about to push print.
Okay.
Um, yeah, on the
So
book.
that was the next question. When?
Yeah, so it comes out in July. I'm heading back to Australia for the whole month of July to do a series of cooking events. So my dream is that I bring a bit of the Good Kitchen to Australia
Right.
for the cooking events and the book launches. I'm going to invite small food-based charities to come and connect and really highlight the amazing work that they're doing. And then I come back to Italy to Mussomeli in August. So the books will be available in the Good Kitchen. In the UK, they'll be available from the website, Melbourne Books website. And then I think the publisher's talking to a US distributor. I think at the moment it'd be quite expensive to send them from London to the US. But by the
Mm.
time we have this video up, I'm sure we'll have some more information. But yeah, it's
Okay,
been
we'll watch out for
beautiful.
that. That's really good. So yes, I guess as soon as, just let us know as soon as the book is available,
Yeah.
wherever it's available, because we're mostly US readers and watchers. But obviously we have UK, Canada, Australia too. So and Italy and UK battle it out for our second largest readership,
Wow.
which I always thought that was curious, but one time I was told that maybe Italians are making sure that we're doing what we're doing correctly. But we're trying. If you're watching
Yeah,
and you're Italian, we're trying.
yeah.
Okay. So, as you know, this series is called Chat with an Expat. And since beginning, I thought it was a cute title because it rhymed. A few people have said, well, I don't really like the word expat, but I'll ask you anyway. In your definition, what is an expat?
Uh, That's a really good question. I guess because I've always pictured myself as Australian at heart for sure. But then
Okay.
obviously I lived in the UK for 23
Hmm.
years and now I feel part Italian too. I never feel like I'm a foreigner in where I live. And I don't ever feel, for me, it's very much about learning about the culture and the community and integrating and becoming a part of it. So the Good Kitchen is an example of that. Like I never wanted to come here and tell people of the town, you need a good kitchen and you need to start rescuing food and you need to have the kids doing things. So I don't know, expat, I'm more of a citizen of the world, I think. I mean, I went to school in Canada as well when I was 17. I went to boarding
Wow.
school in Canada, yeah. So I never see myself as being ex from another country. I always just see it as that country was part of my
Right.
journey.
And you're definitely not the first person to say citizen of the world. And I love
Yeah.
that. Maybe we'll change the name. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. But
Yeah.
yes, that's a beautiful term, citizen of the world. We are a product of all of our experiences that lead
Yeah.
us to where we are now. So that's really great. So, well, like you said, Australia, the UK, Italy. So I like to ask, well, when you're in Italy, what do you miss about home, as in outside of Italy, and then vice versa?
Good question. Home will always be home. I think, when I was in Australia in January and February, the air, stepping off the plane, the kind of ease of being there. I try as much as I can not to, think the grass is always greener or look at the things I miss.
Mhm.
Because if I did that, then because I've traveled so much in my in my time, if I did that, I would miss the moment of what it is here.
Nice.
Um, I'm definitely heading towards spending a bit more time in Australia and the kitchen being self-sustaining and having a life between the two. I think it's time for me for sure to do that. But yeah, I don't miss a lot.
Well, sometimes
Even
it's simple things, and it's okay. You didn't have to say anything.
yeah,
It's funny because sometimes people that I've interviewed that have moved to small town, they'll say, "I miss Thai food." It'll be
yeah,
something very little. Now, of course, like I said,
yeah,
you don't have to answer, but it
yeah,
doesn't have to be. But I'm glad because, like
yeah,
you are living, like you said, for the moment, and
yeah,
that's great that you don't feel this kind of yearning or anything like that. But
yeah,
some of the answers have been very superficial, like Thai food
yeah,
or
yeah. Well,
tacos.
the other thing I did, Lisa, which it'd be worth mentioning for the viewers, is there's a beautiful area in Sicily called Torre Salsa. It's about an hour and 15 from Mussomeli towards Agrigento and then north of Agrigento.
Mm,
And it's a nature reserve, 6 kilometers of a nature reserve. And it reminded me so much of Australia. So I used to go there every weekend when I first moved to Mussomeli. And now I ended up buying just a little farm there with olive trees. And so for me, I'm always conscious of looking after myself to run, so I'm able to run the kitchen. So the
right.
kitchen Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I go to my little campagna by the sea where my olive trees are. And because that reminds me of Australia, it doesn't feel like I'm, missing too much because it has just the most beautiful, beautiful beaches. But, I've set it up that I have that lovely balance and have that other space to go to. But Torre Salsa is a stunning part of Sicily.
I will look it up. I don't know it. That was kind of like my next question, which was where do you go to get away from it all when you're in Italy
Yeah.
besides Mussomeli? So that would
Yep.
definitely be one place, right?
Oh, for sure. I've learned all about harvesting olives and it's such a fascinating process and it's a beautiful community up there too. So in the book, actually, I write about my life in Torre Salsa and how there's an amazing food community. So Nino, the shepherd, brings his sheep to graze on my land, and then his sister Josephina makes sheep's cheese that I buy to have on the table for when my friends come around. So, there's a lovely food culture and community there.
Love that.
And And in the book, I write about how, you don't have to, because people often ask me about what they can do to give back to community. And I always say, look, you don't have to move to Sicily like I did and open a community kitchen, but just look at what's in your own backyard. And it's actually
Exactly.
mentioned it in the TED Talk as
Definitely.
well. Knock on your neighbor's door, see if
Right.
you, particularly the elderly, see if they're okay. But food is the one thing we all have in common. So it's a great connector.
Definitely. That's great. Well, one more question and then we'll wrap
Yeah.
it up. Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? What are your goals?
So my goals, Lisa, I'm achieving them, which is incredible.
Yeah.
As I say, the kitchen's 3 years, we turned 3 in July. And I always pictured that I would give the kitchen back to the town and that we would create jobs and the kitchen would be sustainable and
Mhm.
that I'd have to be here all the time to run it. I think it's a challenge at times when there's only one person at the helm. So it was always my dream that that would happen. And so within the next 5 years, we are looking at doing a couple of projects in the kitchen. One of them is to start a community cooking course for young chefs. So during the pandemic, I noticed that a lot of chefs that came and volunteered in the community kitchens kind of didn't have the skills of how to upscale recipes or how to turn food around really quickly and cook in,
Right.
for people. So the idea is that we run every year a course in the kitchen for young chefs. So that's the next step. And then really just have this life between Australia and Sicily. So I come
Mhm.
back, make sure the kitchen's okay, run the course for the young chefs. And then yeah, I just continue to do what I do. Like I love writing. I think there's another book on the horizon.
Good.
Um, yeah. But really for me, just to continue on the path that I'm on.
That's great. And what a great path it is. Thank you, Danny, for
Thank you.
sharing everything today. That's wonderful. So please tell us, how do we find you?
Yes.
Whether that's
Yeah.
social media, website, whatever you want to mention, and
Yeah.
how do we help?
Oh, thank you, Lisa. So funnily enough, we're in the process of developing a website for the kitchen because I've got these amazing volunteers, and so that's on the horizon soon. But in the meantime, my Instagram is Danny for Good,
Mhm.
and so that's kind of like my website. And I actually have a blog as well called Good for Good,
Okay.
goodforgood.com. And that is, I blog there mainly about the kitchen and life in Sicily, so people can reach me there. And then really, just if you visit Sicily, come to Mussomeli and come to one of our Sunday lunches. Later in the year, we're going to be doing another online crowdfunding, so we can make the kitchen even more sustainable and create jobs. So that information will be on my social media channels and also on goodforgood.com.
That's great. So please, like I always say, uh, every like, follow, share, subscribe in our case. I know you have a YouTube channel, but I won't say that so much. I think, because that's a little bit more of your time, but for sure,
Yeah.
follow his journey, Danny's journey via the website and the Instagram. And makes the biggest difference. Doesn't cost anything. It just makes us aware. And this builds our online community. And that's how we found Danny. And that's how you can find Danny or anyone else that's doing the good, like Danny.
Great
So with that,
advice.
yeah, with that being said, we are Live in Italy magazine. The website is www.liveinItaly.mag.com, and then you can find us liveinItalyMag.com. Please subscribe, and so we can continue to share stories. Subscribe to the website as well, so you're notified of new articles, new videos in that, and join us again. So thank you, Danny, for your time. That's wonderful.
Pleasure, Lisa. It was a joy to speak to you, and good on you for doing what you're doing to bring people together. And the world needs more good stories and people connecting for sure.